Imagine a figure stepping out of the mists of time, a king without a kingdom's history, a priest whose authority predates the very laws you know. What if this enigmatic being, appearing in the dawn of biblical narrative, holds a key, a profound, life-altering key, to understanding not only the identity of Jesus Christ, but also the very fabric of your eternal destiny? This isn't a myth. It's a true story hidden within the ancient scriptures, a story so powerful it could redefine your perception of God, faith, and the future. Stay with me, because the mystery of Melchizedek is about to unfold, and what you discover will resonate deep within your soul, offering answers you never knew you were seeking. Prepare to have your understanding of the Bible, and perhaps even your life's trajectory, forever changed. In the sprawling tapestry of the ancient world, where empires rose and crumbled like dust in the wind, where the clang of swords often drowned out the whispers of peace, a drama of epic proportions was unfolding. 9 formidable monarchs, their ambitions as vast as the territories they sought to control, locked horns in a brutal contest for dominance. On one side stood Kedorlaomer, the powerful king of Elam, leading a fearsome coalition of rulers, their eyes set on expanding their tyrannical grip. That on the other, 5 kings, among them the rulers of the infamous cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, desperately sought to break free from the yoke of oppression, their lands and resources coveted by the Northern Alliance. This was more than just a territorial dispute. It was a clash of ideologies, a struggle for supremacy that would determine the fate of the region. Armies clashed, cities were besieged, and the land ran red with the blood of warriors. Amidst this chaotic backdrop of conflict and devastation, a seemingly insignificant event occurred that would have far-reaching consequences. Lot, the nephew of Abraham, found himself caught in the crossfire, taken captive as a prisoner of war amidst the spoils of the victorious kings. News of Lot's capture reached Abraham, a man of simple faith, a patriarch who commanded no vast armies or sprawling kingdoms. Yet, within his heart burned a fierce loyalty and a deep sense of responsibility towards his family. Undaunted by the overwhelming odds, Abraham, relying not on military might but on the strength of his conviction and the loyalty of his trained servants, a mere 318 men, embarked on a daring rescue mission. His swift and decisive offensive against the victorious kings was nothing short of miraculous. He pursued them relentlessly, his small band driven by a righteous purpose, and in a stunning turn of events, he not only defeated the powerful coalition, but also liberated Lot and recovered all the stolen goods. Abraham's unexpected triumph reverberated throughout the land. His name became synonymous with courage and divine favor. He had single-handedly reversed the fortunes of Sodom and established himself as a leader whose authority transcended earthly power, a man blessed and protected by forces beyond the realm of mortal kings. It was in this very moment of unparalleled victory and burgeoning renown, as Abraham returned from his audacious campaign, that a figure of profound and enduring mystery steps onto the stage of biblical history: Melchizedek, the king of Salem and priest of the Most High God. Without fanfare, without introduction, without any discernible lineage or past, Melchizedek appears before Abraham. He brings with him bread and wine, simple provisions yet laden with profound and prophetic symbolism that would echo across millennia, pointing toward a reality far beyond the immediate context of their meeting. Who was this enigmatic king-priest? Where did his seemingly inherent priestly authority originate, especially considering that the Mosaic Law, with its intricate system of priesthood, was still centuries in the future? What is perhaps most striking and deeply significant is the Bible's conspicuous silence regarding Melchizedek's origins. In a book meticulously concerned with genealogies, tracing the lineage of individuals and nations with painstaking detail, there is no mention of Melchizedek's father, mother, or any descendants. He simply appears, performs his divinely ordained role, and then vanishes from the historical narrative as abruptly as he arrived. Yet his brief but impactful presence and the lofty titles he bears conceal secrets that challenge the very limits of human understanding, hinting at a reality far greater and more eternal than the fleeting kingdoms of men. The very name Melchizedek holds a key to understanding his extraordinary nature. Derived from the Hebrew language, Melchizedek literally translates to "My king is righteousness" or "king of righteousness." But this righteousness is not merely a reflection of his moral conduct or adherence to human laws. In the rich tapestry of biblical culture, righteousness is intrinsically linked to the very character of God, to his perfect justice and unwavering holiness. That Melchizedek's title was not simply an acknowledgement of his just rule over a people, but a profound declaration of his inherent nature, a representation of a righteousness that emanated directly from the Most High God himself. His authority was unique and independent, not derived from any known earthly dynasty or established through human decree. It was as if his reign had been established from time immemorial, a testament to a divine order that transcended the temporal realms of human kingdoms. Furthermore, Melchizedek is also identified as the King of Peace, as he ruled over Salem, a name inextricably linked to the Hebrew word shalom, meaning peace, wholeness, and well-being. This raises an intriguing question. What city was this Salem? While the Jerusalem we know today, the future capital of Israel and the spiritual heart of the world, did not yet exist in its fully established form, Salem was already a recognized kingdom, and Melchizedek reigned over it long before any Israelite conquest or settlement. This early biblical mention of a location that would later become the spiritual epicenter of the world is far from coincidental. The scriptures repeatedly point to Jerusalem as the city of God, the place where his temple would stand, where Christ would ultimately reign, and where the divine plan for humanity's redemption would unfold. Therefore, Melchizedek's reign over Salem was not an isolated historical footnote, but a significant foreshadowing, a prophetic shadow of something far greater yet to come. What does this profound connection between Melchizedek and Jerusalem truly signify? And why did a man with no recorded lineage possess such powerful and divinely charged titles? Following his remarkable victory over the invading kings, Abraham returns, laden with spoils and hailed as a hero. He could have easily succumbed to the allure of earthly riches, claiming the spoils of war as his own, solidifying his newfound reputation as a powerful conqueror. But something extraordinary happens. Before Melchizedek, the king of Salem and priest of the Most High God, Abraham performs a profound act of reverence. He bows down in a gesture of deep recognition and willingly gives him a tithe, a tenth of everything he had recovered. This seemingly simple act is absolutely revolutionary and conceals a theological significance that transcends even the history of the nation of Israel. Consider this. The law of Moses, with its detailed instructions regarding tithes and offerings, did not yet exist. The Levitical system of priests and their designated roles in receiving tithes was still centuries away in the future. And yet, Abraham, the very patriarch of faith, the man through whom God's covenant promises would flow and the lineage of the chosen people would be established, voluntarily submits to a mysterious king-priest who was neither his descendant nor a member of any known tribe. This act of tithing by Abraham fundamentally alters our understanding of spiritual authority. It reveals that Melchizedek possessed a spiritual standing and authority that was superior even to that of Abraham, the father of faith. If Abraham, the recipient of God's direct promises and the progenitor of God's chosen people, recognized Melchizedek's preeminence by offering him a tithe, then it logically follows that the entire priesthood that would later arise through Abraham's lineage, including the Levitical priests, was already subordinate to this mysterious priestly order established by Melchizedek. The Levitical priesthood would eventually be established based on the Mosaic law, a covenant given at a specific point in history. However, the priesthood of Melchizedek existed long before the law, operating under a different, more ancient, and seemingly eternal divine covenant. However, The priesthood of Melchizedek existed long before the law, operating under a different, more ancient, and seemingly eternal divine covenant, but a temporary representation of something far greater and more enduring. And what truly deepens the enigma surrounding this encounter is Melchizedek's own reciprocal act towards Abraham. He not only receives the tithe, acknowledging Abraham's offering, but he also offers bread and wine, a seemingly simple gesture that would echo with profound significance millennia later at a crucial moment in the history of humanity, the Last Supper. But why bread and wine? What did these elements represent in that ancient encounter? Were they merely provisions for a weary traveler, or did they carry a deeper, symbolic meaning that foreshadowed a future reality? Centuries after this enigmatic encounter between Abraham and Melchizedek, King David, a man after God's own heart and a prophet in his own right, penned one of the most messianic and prophetic psalms in all of the Bible, Psalm 110. Within this divinely inspired song, David declares an intriguing and momentous phrase: "The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek." Psalm 110 verse 4 NIV. But to whom was God referring? David himself, despite his profound relationship with God, never occupied the position of a priest. Furthermore, none of the Levitical priests who serve in the tabernacle and later the temple could be described as eternal priests, as their service was limited by their mortal lives and the succession of the Levitical line. This crucial point indicates that this powerful declaration in Psalm 110 did not apply to anyone living in David's time, but pointed definitively to someone who would come in the future, a promised Messiah who, like Melchizedek, would exercise a priesthood that did not depend on the lineage of Levi or the constraints of the Mosaic law. This prophetic utterance remained a mystery, a tantalizing clue within the Old Testament scriptures, for centuries until the advent of the New Testament and the revelation of its definitive interpretation. The promised Messiah, Jesus Christ, did not descend from the tribe of Levi, the tribe from which the priestly lineage was drawn according to the law. Instead, he belonged to the tribe of Judah, the royal tribe from which the kings of Israel originated. According to the strict letter of the Mosaic law, this lineage disqualified him from serving as a priest. But if the law mandated that priests must come from the tribe of Levi, how could Christ be called the high priest? And how could his priesthood be described as being in the order of Melchizedek? The answer to this seemingly paradoxical question was hidden within the enigmatic figure of Melchizedek himself. Jesus did not become a priest based on his earthly lineage or adherence to the Levitical order. Instead, his priesthood was of a different, higher order, according to the order of Melchizedek, a heavenly and eternal priesthood that transcended the limitations and temporary nature of the Mosaic law. God not only established this unique priesthood for Christ, but also solemnly swore an oath that it would be so, emphasizing its permanence and divine authority. This divine oath signifies that Christ's priesthood, unlike the Levitical priesthood, which could be altered or superseded, could never be revoked or abolished. It was sealed by the unchangeable word of God himself. But if Jesus was not from the Levitical priestly lineage and yet received the unparalleled title of high priest according to the order of Melchizedek, this raises an even more profound and potentially revolutionary question. Could Jesus and Melchizedek actually be the same person? This is a question that has intrigued theologians and biblical scholars for centuries, prompting deep study and varied interpretations of the scriptural evidence. The author of the Epistle to the Hebrews in the New Testament makes a bold and deeply intriguing statement about Melchizedek. In Hebrews 7 verse 3, he writes that this mysterious king priest was without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God. One abideth a priest continually. KJV. What does this extraordinary description truly mean? The first striking aspect is the complete absence of any recorded genealogy for Melchizedek. While this might not be unusual in secular historical accounts of minor figures, it is profoundly significant within the context of the Bible, a book that meticulously details the lineages of key individuals and families. This deliberate omission is alarming and immediately sets Melchizedek apart from every other priest and figure in the Old Testament. It not only suggests that he was fundamentally different, but also raises the compelling possibility that he was more than just an ordinary human being. The text also states that Melchizedek abideth a priest continually. How could an ordinary mortal man be described as an eternal priest, having neither beginning of days nor end of life? Could this mean that Melchizedek did not experience a terrestrial birth or death? Or was this a unique way of indicating his existence beyond the normal constraints of time and mortality, a priesthood that was not subject to the limitations of human life? This description bears a striking resemblance to another figure, Jesus Christ. He is also called the Eternal High Priest, Hebrews 7 verse 24, and his ministry did not originate from earthly lineage, but from a celestial, divine source. This profound connection has led many scholars throughout Christian history to consider the compelling hypothesis that Melchizedek could have been a Christophany, a pre-incarnate manifestation of Christ in the Old Testament, appearing in human form before his definitive incarnation in Bethlehem. If Melchizedek and Jesus are indeed the same divine person, appearing at different points in redemptive history, this would fundamentally change our entire perspective on Melchizedek's encounter with Abraham. Instead of a meeting between a patriarch of faith and an unusual king-priest, it would have been an encounter between Abraham and the pre-incarnate Christ himself, with Abraham receiving blessings from him and acknowledging his ultimate supremacy through the act of tithing. But if this theory holds true, what exactly was Melchizedek in this pre-incarnate form? Was he an angel taking on a temporary human guise? Was he the very Spirit of God embodied in a visible form? Or could there be other explanations for this enduring mystery that continue to be debated and explored by theologians and biblical scholars? The profound mystery surrounding Melchizedek has sparked a multitude of theories and interpretations throughout the annals of theological history. Some scholars have diligently attempted to identify him with well-known biblical characters, seeking to find a place for him within the established genealogies and narratives. Others have viewed him as a unique celestial entity, a being distinct from both humanity and the angelic realm. But which of these theories carries the most weight when carefully examined through the lens of Scripture and historical context? One of the oldest and most persistent hypotheses, particularly among rabbinic scholars, is the identification of Melchizedek with Shem, one of the three sons of Noah who survived the Great Flood. According to the biblical account, Shem lived for an exceptionally long period, and some genealogical interpretations suggest that he could have still been alive during the time of Abraham. As the patriarch of a godly lineage that had preserved the knowledge of the true God through the cataclysmic flood, it is conceivable that Shem could have taken on the role of a priest of the Most High God in the ancient world. However, this theory, while intriguing, faces significant challenges when compared with the explicit statements in the Epistle to the Hebrews. Hebrews 7 meticulously emphasizes that Melchizedek was without father, without mother, without genealogy. Shem, in contrast, has a clearly recorded genealogy in the book of Genesis, tracing his lineage back to Noah and ultimately to Adam. This direct contradiction makes the identification of Melchizedek with Shem problematic according to the New Testament's inspired interpretation. Another possibility that has been proposed is that Melchizedek was an angel who appeared in human form. The Bible does record instances where angelic beings took on human appearances to interact with patriarchs and other individuals, e.g., the three visitors who came to Abraham in Genesis 18. If Melchizedek were indeed an angel in disguise, this would explain the absence of a terrestrial lineage, as he would not belong to the human race. However, there are also challenges to this angelic interpretation. Melchizedek is explicitly called a king who ruled over a real city, Salem. While angels are powerful spiritual beings who carry out God's will, the scriptures never explicitly describe them as ruling earthly kingdoms in their own right. Their interactions with humanity are typically as messengers or agents of God, not as established monarchs. An even more captivating and theologically significant theory is that Melchizedek was a pre-incarnate manifestation of God on earth, specifically a Christophany, an appearance of the divine Son of God in human form before his incarnation as Jesus of Nazareth. This view finds support in several key aspects of the biblical narrative surrounding Melchizedek. He bears divine titles such as priest of the Most High God. He receives honor and a tithe from Abraham, and his priesthood is described as eternal and without beginning or end, characteristics typically associated with divinity. If Melchizedek was indeed a pre-incarnate Christ, this would provide a powerful explanation for the unique nature of his priesthood and its superiority to the Levitical order. It would mean that Jesus was already establishing his role as the ultimate high priest long before the events of the New Testament, foreshadowing the sacrifice he would ultimately make on the cross. This interpretation aligns well with the description in Hebrews 7, where Melchizedek is said to be made like unto the Son of God and to possess an everlasting priesthood. The phrase, made like unto, in this context could imply a pre-existence and a deliberate manifestation in a form that foreshadowed the future incarnation. Regardless of which specific theory one adheres to, or if the mystery remains partially veiled, one central point remains undeniably clear. Melchizedek was not an ordinary character in biblical history. He enters the narrative without explanation, performs a priestly function that is explicitly stated to be superior to that of the Levitical priests who would come centuries later, and then disappears from the historical record without a trace. But the most profound aspect of his story is that he is not an isolated enigma. His existence and his unique priesthood point directly forward to Jesus Christ and to a new covenant that would ultimately replace the entire religious system of the Old Testament. But what exactly does this connection mean for the redemptive work of Jesus? And how does this ancient encounter impact our faith and understanding of God today? Melchizedek's priesthood was not merely an isolated historical event in the early chapters of Genesis. It served as a crucial precursor and a prophetic foreshadowing of a radical shift in the relationship between God and humanity that would occur centuries later through Jesus Christ. Throughout the entire Old Testament period, the Levitical priesthood, established through the law of Moses, served as the divinely ordained intermediary between God and the people of Israel. Only the descendants of Levi were permitted to serve in the tabernacle and later the temple, offering sacrifices for the atonement of sins and interceding on behalf of the people. This system, while divinely instituted, was inherently limited. The priests were mortal beings, subject to the same human frailties and temptations as those they served. The sacrifices they offered were also imperfect, requiring repetition year after year, a constant reminder of the incompleteness of their atonement. The law itself, while holy and just, could not ultimately eradicate sin from the human heart or provide a perfect and lasting reconciliation with God. It served as a tutor, pointing towards a greater solution, a more perfect priesthood and sacrifice that was yet to come. But then came Jesus Christ, not from the lineage of Levi, but from the tribe of Judah, the tribe designated for royalty, not priesthood. According to the strict requirements of the law, this lineage disqualified him from serving as a priest within the established system. Yet his arrival was not meant to perpetuate the old order, but to usher in a new and better covenant, one established on superior promises and a more efficacious priesthood, the priesthood according to the order of Melchizedek. This designation is pivotal. It signifies that Christ's priestly authority did not originate from earthly descent or adherence to the Mosaic law, but from a heavenly and eternal source, just like Melchizedek's. Like Melchizedek, Jesus is a priest forever, not because of a hereditary lineage or a temporary appointment, but because God himself declared it with an unshakable oath. This new priesthood, therefore, does not merely replace the Levitical one. It completely surpasses it in its efficacy and eternal nature. Consider the implications. Instead of the repetitive sacrifices of animals, which could never truly take away sin, Christ offered a single, perfect, and all-sufficient sacrifice, his own body and blood on the cross. This one act of divine love and self-immolation accomplished what the entire Levitical system could never achieve, a complete and permanent atonement for the sins of all who believe. Instead of ministering in an earthly temple made with human hands, Christ ascended to the heavenly sanctuary, where he now serves as our high priest before the very throne of God. And unlike the Levitical priests, whose service was limited by death, Jesus lives forever, interceding eternally for his people, ensuring their constant access to the Father's grace and mercy. There's a powerful parallel that cannot be ignored, a subtle yet profound connection that weaves through the fabric of salvation history, the offering of bread and wine. When Melchizedek met Abraham, he brought forth bread and wine, bestowing a blessing upon the patriarch. Centuries later, on the night before his crucifixion, during the Last Supper with his disciples, Jesus took bread and wine, broke the bread and said, "This is my body, which is for you." And taking the cup, he said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood." The echo across millennia is undeniable. Melchizedek's offering of bread and wine was a prophetic signpost, pointing forward to the ultimate sacrifice and the new covenant that would be inaugurated through Christ's body and blood. It was a foreshadowing of the very elements that would become central to the Christian communion, a remembrance of Christ's sacrifice and a celebration of a new relationship with God made possible through him. Melchizedek, in his mysterious appearance with bread and wine, was setting the stage for the ultimate king of righteousness and peace to establish a new and eternal priesthood through a new and eternal covenant. But if this priesthood of Melchizedek, now embodied in Jesus Christ, is heavenly and eternal, what does it reveal to us about the future that awaits believers? Is there something inherent in the nature of Melchizedek's reign and priesthood that helps us understand what is to come at the end of times, the ultimate destiny of humanity, and the nature of God's eternal kingdom? The figure of Melchizedek not only points to Christ in the past, as the fulfillment of ancient prophecy and the inaugurator of a new covenant, but it also sheds a powerful light on the future, the ultimate culmination of God's redemptive plan, and the eternal state that awaits those who are united with Christ. If Melchizedek's priesthood was indeed eternal and explicitly stated to be superior to the temporary Levitical priesthood, it signifies that he was not bound by the limitations of time, but was part of a divine and overarching plan that spans the entirety of human history and beyond. This plan ultimately culminates in the absolute and everlasting reign of Jesus Christ at the end of times. The book of Revelation, the climactic book of the Bible, paints a breathtaking picture of Jesus Christ in his glorified state, returning in power and majesty as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, ruling with perfect justice and establishing a kingdom of everlasting peace. These very characteristics, kingship, righteousness, and peace, are the hallmarks of Melchizedek himself, the King of righteousness and King of peace. So, as you reflect on this incredible mystery of Melchizedek and its profound connection to Jesus Christ, consider the depth of God's plan and the security of your salvation in him. Embrace the hope of an eternal kingdom where righteousness and peace reign supreme. And if you want to keep discovering the deepest secrets of the Bible, subscribe to the channel now, turn on notifications, and share this video, because there are many incredible revelations yet to come that will continue to illuminate God's amazing grace and his enduring love for you. Let's continue this journey of discovery together. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below. I'd love to hear what resonates with you most from this exploration of Melchizedek. And if you found this video insightful, please share it with your friends and family so they too can uncover this fascinating truth. Your engagement helps us reach more people with these important messages. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you richly as you delve deeper into his word.